What's up guys, it's Grant bringing you guys a new video, and in today's video I'm going to be answering a question that I got on Instagram. I already did a different video like this where I answered a different question that I got at one point in time where I just asked you guys, if you have any questions about bow staff or anything related to that, whole realm, then to ask me the questions on Instagram. So this is another one of the questions from that series. So I'm going to be answering another one of these questions today. So this question comes from Lizzie and she says, what drew you to learning how to use the bow staff? Now I know that in a lot of scenarios people kind of show up to a martial arts dojo or studio or gym or whatever you prefer to call it, and they obviously have a range of weapons to select from. And I guess that was technically the case for me as well. Obviously, whatever weapon you want to go into, you can be taught that. But with my dojo, the main thing was bow staff. When I originally started using weapons, I think there were only like 2 or 3 people who didn't use a bow staff. So the, specialty or the specialization at the dojo was the bow staff. I think there were 2 other people who did sword at the time, and then I think 1 other person who did nunchucks. I'm pretty sure 1 or 2 other people that did nunchucks. So maybe there were 4 people, but as I said, the bulk of the people were using the bow staff. So I think that obviously played a huge factor into it. I, wanted to learn with everybody else, all my friends and stuff, learning the same weapon, and I didn't want to, just go off learning something else because, you kind of compete against other people with your training when you're using the same weapon. For example, if we're doing a race with, how many reverse strikes you can do in 1 minute, it's a little bit more difficult to, track that when you're using other weapons and stuff. So I guess I just followed along with like the specialization in the school and went with the bow staff. So that was obviously one of the huge reasons. Now, of course, at any point in time, I could have switched and learned a different weapon, but I started using it more and more, started getting better with it, and obviously started competing with it. And then obviously from going to competitions, I would watch other people do different forms and things like that. And obviously at tournaments, people use a huge range of different weapons and things like that. Like I've seen some very creative ones with like strings on them, and all the ones where they have the flags at the end of it and they're like long metal chains and stuff like that. So there's tons of weapons, but always the one that I found the most interesting and the one that I just felt was for me. Maybe again because everybody at my dojo was using the bow staff, but it was always the bow staff. So I would see it in competition, and that's what I would want to watch the most. That's what I took the most interest in. So going to a bunch of different tournaments and seeing people like Jackson Rudolph compete and things like that was a huge inspiration for me when I was growing up and when I was first starting to use the bow staff. So through things like that, I just kind of got hooked on using the bow staff even further than the point of everybody in my dojo using it. And I was fortunate enough to be able to progress my skills with the bow staff at a pretty good pace. So, I was happy with that. I was seeing results, and I wasn't about to, just randomly switch to another weapon that I wasn't as interested in and, maybe risk not being as good with a different weapon than I was with the bow staff. Now, of course, I've like randomly, I think I used to have a pair of nunchucks that I would just kind of throw around, do whatever with. I didn't really actually, study using them or anything like that. I think we have a couple swords at the house as well, but things like that, it's just kind of like, I guess, for fun. I never really considered going into competition with it, and especially if you're competing at a certain level, you kind of have to focus on one weapon because the amount of time you have to put into practicing with a specific weapon, if you want to be, say for example, like on the world stage or the national stage or whatever, you need to spend a lot of time on that weapon and not really divide it between different ones. So obviously, I guess on a competitive standpoint, it also made a lot of sense for me to stick with the bow staff, and I liked it, so there wasn't really a problem there. So that's what drew me to using the bow staff, and I know it's not like an elaborate story that has a bunch of twists and turns of selecting a different weapon and then eventually moving on to using the bow staff and sticking with that. I've just always really done the bow staff. And I know it's kind of biased to say this, but I feel like if I had the opportunity to restart from when I was younger, I think I would still choose the bow staff. I still, trying to not view it again in like a biased format, I still think it's the best looking one. I think that the tricks are the hardest to do with the bow staff in my opinion. And overall, I'd still say that it's my favorite one. So I've been always using the bow staff. I probably always will. But that basically sums up my answer for the question. So I'm gonna have more bow staff videos coming out soon. I just uploaded one actually yesterday. If you guys haven't seen it, it's gonna pop up at the top of the screen and you guys can go check that out. But hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.